piano. Okay, let's have a bow. And let's do loopy bow tonalization on 3. So that means you will only use your 3rd finger. And we've done loopy bows before, haven't we? So it starts like this. And you can either go up or back onto the E string then. It was just that squishy. Yeah, very good. So this is really useful, I think, in lots of different ways, but particularly for what we were talking about before with blocking. That if you're going to go from here back again, she says very badly, then you have to be super aware of at what point your finger is on both strings and how you sort of roll over them. So it's good for that prep. You can't just lift it as you're changing string. So you go from the G to the A, from here, upper tone, no, but over the string. So you have to be very sensitive in the fingertip to catch the string, and I think actually I use the other finger to help me get across without the E string ping in between. Yeah. So let's just play from here. You can just join in. So you might want to use the second finger to catch the string. Does it make sense? Yeah? Can I just hear? So did you hear a tiny bit of E? Yeah. So don't try and go faster. Just be super aware of when your finger has tipped onto the A and when your bow is tipped with it. So I think you're still trying to jump. It's fine to hear the shift. Yeah, I think that's better, much better. Can you do the shift slower? Exactly, and then your bow just hit the D as well, but there was no E string sound or A string sound. Yeah, a couple more tries. Yeah, much better. Happier? Yeah. Yeah.
So glide with the second finger, then place it through.
Well, or it can be that, or it can just be catch it so that it doesn't ping up. Because here, that's what we're trying to avoid. Yeah, so there's a bit of travelling on the two, or just holding the string. Yeah. Good, let's play the third movement of Vivaldi. Now we're all super warmed up, obviously. Okay, so the way I teach this is the same as the beginning of perpetual motion. I teach the kids to give the upbeat to the piano. And the same for bomb.
Right, okay.
Sorry, I should have said that before we play. So here's the piano. This are the same as the first movement, including the cadenza. So my preview is 75 to 91, and they start that at the very least while they're doing perpetual motion, which we do before this, unless there's some unusual situation happening. In terms of the style, obviously it's very similar to the last one. Many of the challenges are similar, just a little bit more tricky. So my tick boxes are exactly the same, apart from I also add memory. So I do want them to learn the last movement off by heart, but the memory is not so difficult for that one, whereas this one, the memory's got some traps in it, which we'll talk about. So I do make it a tick box, but if people find it difficult to memorise, the memory will always be a tick box anyway, because they want to work towards getting it. I do also think, it depends on the age and the stage of the student, but I do also think that coming towards the end of book 4, like this might be the first piece that they do with the music for a credit, and then if they want to do it as a solo, they might come back and memorise it. But I am starting to get more flexible about whether they memorise everything, because I think that you can end up with students who can play quite well and who learn reasonably quickly, but the memorising really slows them down, and then you can sort of spend an extra year in book 4 just to learn those 7 pieces off by heart. And I think combined with the emphasis that I want to put on music reading, I think if their reading is really good and their memory is something that they find difficult, then why is it so important for them to memorise everything that they can only move on once they've memorised it? Like, you know, if we think about as players, how many times in performance it has to be memorised, it's a very tiny number of times compared with how often you can play something at concert standard with the music in front of you. So this is where I start to get more kind of selective, like, you know, we're going to learn perpetual motion off by heart because it's a show piece and we're going to do it in group and, you know, it's easy. Like, of course you're going to learn that off by heart. But something like this, only very few students are going to choose to do this as a solo because the cadenza is so hard. You know, it's hours and hours and hours more repetition work for this bit, those 12 bars or whatever it is, to be up to scratch, that most students will never do that in a concert, and I think that's fine. And so why should they then learn the whole thing off by heart, just kind of on principle? Fairly contentious position for me to take. I think it's quite nice to tell them there are 894 notes in this piece, because often they will feel that they've really screwed up badly when they make 3 or 4 mistakes.
Yeah.
So like if you turn that into a percentage, you know, like you're not even getting 90% everything right, you're getting like 99.4% everything right. Let's focus on the positives and not on those 3 notes or whatever.
Looking at it, it's like, but it sounds like your life.
Well, only 894.
Yeah.
I haven't counted them myself, someone told me, so if you want to make sure that, if you want to fact check,
No,
go ahead.
Psychologically, it's that barrier, isn't it? It's that you look at all these notes on the page and you kind of go, it's just this huge thing.
Well, I mean, it's nearly 1,000 notes, 894. It's a lot. Anyway, so the boxes that I do have in the start of this that I don't in the last one are leading the start.
So you lead in the piano.
Yeah, and then you take your note from the piano. And staccato style I've put rather than baroque style. I mean, it's the same thing basically, but mostly staccato. So staccato, cadenza sections, intonation, tone, tempo, dynamics, memory, and leading the start, and then anything else that your students need that is not in the normal list. Boxes, perhaps.
Martellato is like the allegro bow, isn't it? It's like fast staccato.
Yes, I don't teach that really. Yeah, it's
Too loud.
too in the string.
Yeah.
It's a very sort of old school way to play baroque.
Is the baroque style that
More speed,
that's
less
more
weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that more? Is that also more classical?
Well, so in classical times, lots of people would have played in the old-fashioned way, which is more baroque style. But then the most avant-garde sort of classical players will have started to be coming a bit more into the string, but certainly not until the Romantic period where you get that massive meaty sound. It's like an opera singer. And the same with like we think baroque bows and classical bows, but it's not like, you know, at the year 1820 everybody changed their bows. Like lots of people would have been playing on what they played on for 50 years, and then other people would have played on new ones. And I don't know very much about the history of the bows, but I presume that some of those changes were made gently. Like,
Made to late 1800s, isn't it?
yeah,
Mid-ish.
yeah.
Taught, I think. Invented.
And also, it was only about 10 years ago that I first played on a baroque bow, and I was expecting, you know how if you hear people talk about baroque bows, well, you can't play sostenuto and you can't play da-da-da-da. I can play almost the same as on my normal bow on a baroque bow, and that was a proper baroque bow. It wasn't like a fake, it's my friend's worth a lot of money baroque bow, which was really interesting to me because like this idea that you can't do so and so, like no, it's the way that we've taught ourselves to use our bodies, which has changed more than the bow. Like yeah, you can get a bigger sound at the tip on our bows than you could on a baroque bow, but not like.
Well, maybe it's not as much to do with it being cut strings or not, as well. Maybe that's the other part of it.
Yeah, but not for like whether you can
Not-
sustain the note or not.
Yeah.
It's much like with almost all of these things, it's much more about what is convention and much less about the, you know, the physical sort of, I can see half your face through the stand. Much more about what's convention at the time, and much less about the physical restrictions of what they did or had. Anyway, I digress, and we have 45 minutes to do this piece and another one, so let's crack on, Kate. Right, so obviously, like the last Vivaldi movement, they need to check their second note before they start. Otherwise, bum, boom, 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 boom. Lovely. I think it's really looking at the music and talking about the rests. So rest, dun, 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 rest, dun, dun, rest, dun, 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 dun. Because when you listen to it, it sounds like it could just be staccato notes. And then when lots of kids play it, I've heard so many times, even like my students, not other people's students, do 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 do, and they just don't really understand that actually those rests are literally written into the music. So I think it's helpful for them to look at that. I changed the fingering in 17. I don't know why you would sit on that B for so long in the old position and then go to the new position just before you've got to find the next note too, rather than changing the B quickly into the new position, and then if you need to settle into the intonation, you've got 3 more notes to do it. So I go into second position on the second B of 17. So swap. Then you've got 3 notes to pull your 1 back and prepare it for that extended 1, major 7th extension. And then swap again. And then it's the same pattern, and you've got time to prepare for that red finger pattern in 20. So I highly recommend you do that. And obviously they need to just practice. I would keep it there because obviously you can't play those 2 as a double stop, but it's the same place.
So you'd practice it as double stops?
Yeah. Which is not written in my music, which I shall write it in.
Up to about 20.
Well, it's really just it's the new position and the 1 each time.
Can we try that now?
Yeah, of course. So first of all, let's have a go at that super slow with the different fingering, sorry.
My handwriting's appalling.
Is it warm in here? Not hot. I'm hot. I wonder if that video's on from. Oh,
For a change, I'm not.
no, that's not on.
She's us. Power of mango.
Power of the mango. Turn another one off. Right, so my turn, your turn. Freeze when you get there. Ready? Play. Freeze, so put your 3 exactly where your 2 was and pull your 1 back, but in the air for now. And can you find this note? And then you would probably stop. Can you hear that really kind of intense interval? And so my turn. Freeze. And then put the 3 where the 2 is, and you're in red finger pattern when you play the next bit. Good, and you would probably have the music in front of the student to do it like that.
Is that was without the chords practice though?
Well, we did 1, didn't we? Yeah.
Pull the 1 back into every.
Yeah. So would you like to practice how you would teach them the double stop bit, or not really? No. Okay, so if we were looking at the music and we're just talking about the finger patterns, so how would I do it? I would play. Okay, let's play those 2 notes together. Okay, so let's play this first. Ready? Play. Okay, so now we're going to find the interval between those fingers. So first of all, we find an octave D. those. Good, and then we're going to pull that one a whole semitone back. So can you put those two notes together? Good, and then we switch to the A. And obviously you can check that with that if you need to. Go back a tone into first position. And then you can do that if their one is not in tune, but probably that will be fine. So it's mostly just the two, the one in third position and the one in second position that they need to do double stops on. And again, for some of my students, they just need to practice this. And some of them it's the string crossing, and then others, well, everybody needs to practice the second version because that's what it is in the piece. But then lots of them don't need to practice that, they just find it easy. And what they do need to practice is because it's that combination of you come down a semitone, open the hand up a semitone, come down a tone, close the hand up a semitone. So it's not a sequence of just doing the same thing lower down the string each time. Wouldn't that be nice? You will see all my repetition boxes when you look at the music. The other fingering that I change is bar 28. I have no idea why anybody would choose to do 3 and then switch.
I've changed 1 to 2 too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I was taught, and I stand by it being a very good basic principle of shifting, and if you can shift on a semitone, you do. You just move your finger up a semitone, your hand, and your finger up a semitone. So here, there's no reason not to do that. Whereas here, you could do it there, but I don't want them to do it there, which is why I don't change the first note of 17 to a 3. Do you see what I mean? So I would definitely, each time they go up the scale, go into 4th position on the bar line. In my book, I've said that I do this shift, but actually the more I teach it, and I've got quite a few kids at this level at the moment, I'm doing more and more just the 3s in bar 40.
Yeah, I do as well.
And of course you need to block the 3. You do not have time to hop from the D to the G.
Yeah, I don't do the shift there, that's just too fast.
Yeah, and then you've got to block again in the 42, and again in 44.
3, 2, 1.
The box at 49, you've got to be really careful to teach them to go to the 2 because it's an upper note trill, because we're using Baroque style.
So it's not written in, but it starts with the 2.
Yeah. There is some sort of discussion about, because you're coming from the upper note, they may not, it would probably have been individual choice whether you started it on the E or whether they started it on the D sharp. If it was coming up, or if it was coming from somewhere else that wasn't that same note, then it would definitely be an upper note trill. But it's like, don't tell someone they're wrong if they want to start it on the D sharp. But I do teach partly for the ease of the shift as well. But then they're really good at getting to that too, and then they just put the 1 up next to it rather than to land on the D sharp or something that is quite tricky.
That's a bit unfair at this stage.
Yeah. And I don't go into 3rd position for the piano because Baroque style. So they just play that whole line from the tutti in 1st position.
So would you end on the open E?
Yeah.
Okay. Before the solo?
Yeah. And this is the first memory trap, isn't it? You either want to play dum 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 da 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 da, which makes it very quick, this movement, and it doesn't have the horrible difficult second page. I'm just going to talk to Tilly, sorry, because I didn't talk to her yesterday. I hope she's just finished school. I'll just check she's alright. Hello, my love. How are you doing? it's the rain. I'm just finishing up with my teacher training in half an hour, and then I'll give you a ring then. Mama's at home. Okay, cool. Alright, darling, talk to you later. Love you, bye. Thank you for understanding. Right, so, yeah, so the first memory trap, so I find that lots of my students just remember it, even though I question myself every time I play this piece, even 25 years after the first time I played it. For me, I remember it's the first memory trap and it goes to B because my brain works with alphabetical orders, but I think you can also tell them it's the end of the first page, so you stay in first position. Or it's the end of the first page, so you stay on a 1. Anyway, stay down, basically, is the thing they've got to remember. Let's put music on stands and just read this cadenza very slowly so we can just think about so that we can think about the fingering that we are going to use, where we shift, etc., etc. But this is your preview box, so they will have been doing it for at least the last piece, if not more.
Damn. Okay, love it.
So we're going to play about this tempo. Clang!
Yes. I'm not sucking that one.
Ready, down bow. Can you avoid? Yeah. The reason for being very picky about that is going up the string can also refer to shifting, can't it?
Yeah.
So in an effort to be as clear as absolutely possible, can you avoid a string crossing by using the 4? Good. So the low 4s, for me, I don't feel strongly whether my students should play a low 4 on the first C sharp of 77. Lots of mine choose a high 3 there, and then, but they definitely then do play 3, 4 for the beginning of the next beat. I definitely want them to play 2, 3 directly underneath that. C, F sharp. And I am using the second position. Well, and then back to first, and then in second as well. So as it's written, basically. And I think for second position, I do write the fingers in, not on that scale because it's just a scale, but 4, 1, E, and then all of the finger numbers in 87 and 88 because unless their sight reading is really, really far beyond their playing level, in which case we kind of would want to ask, why is their sight reading so much better than their playing level? Even if they have always looked at step skips and jumps and they're really good at sight reading, it's very difficult to read at this kind of tempo, second position, because the lines and spaces are inverted. So everything feels really upside down. And then you've got loads of perfect fourths, and those are difficult intervals to read. So I just write the finger numbers in for those bits. You know where I am?
No.
The last note of 86 up to halfway through 88.
Yeah. So let's do that as a first for 87, half a bar. Or do you stay in second?
87, no, I stay in second. So I do what's written in the music
Right.
for both the second position sections. The only bit I don't do in second position is the tutti. Because I think it's really hard to find that too, and I don't see the benefit really, so I'll just go back to first position now. So overlapping boxes, of course, why is it not helpful, or rather not as helpful, to practice 2 bars then the next 2 bars then the next 2 bars?
Because your brain gets stuck in the joints.
Yeah, very good, very pithy, Joe, very good. Exactly, you want to overlap them so that when you stick them all together you know exactly where you're going everywhere that you are. So mine are practicing 10 times. That one, the thing that I found very helpful for the students is to think about, it's almost as if you're trying to cross your 2 and your 3. Because it's red finger pattern, but that doesn't quite give you the feeling of that 2 is almost trying to come underneath the 3. And then. And that's the long one because it's not so hard. So they go all the way to the tutti on that last box. Obviously that's a huge amount of practice. Unless you've got someone who's really into note crunching, you are not going to want to set them that every day. I think it's reasonable to do 2 boxes each practice, 2 boxes within one section. So I generally would advise them to do the first and the third, and then the next day the second and the fourth, and just to alternate them of those 4 boxes. But then they'll have other little bits and pieces to practice. It's not that those are the only boxes they're going to be doing, and it does depend how fluent it is from their preview. They might come to this being able to play it fine and feel like actually what I can do is this whole section 10 times as one big box because I'm just working on the fluency and using rhythm practice. Shall we do a little bit of rhythm practice, or are you perfectly happy with what I mean by that?
No, that's fine. We did that last time, didn't we?
Yeah.
Cookie.
Yeah, exactly. So. And then. Exactly.
That was my face. I was like,
Which colour is it? It's not red. Oh, we could call them purple and yellow, couldn't we? So it just occurred to me that yellow is the opposite.
Purple cookies, even.
Yeah. I mean, I wish there was a word that was long, short, because purple is not it in how we say it normally, but it's the nearest I can find. Well, it's not that there are lots of words that we could change, but I just think Music My Games will just stick with all the words that she's chosen because it's the best one, but it's a bit annoying that there isn't. I don't think there is a word in the language that goes long, short, long, short, long, short, long, with the emphasis on the long.
hungry.
Hungry. Quaver. Okay, back to this. They definitely need a soft wrist to get the so that's something to kind love to do this in group. They definitely would have done that for sites 2, won't they? So as long as they're still sort of able to do that, and then we can practice this on open string. So it's, and as long as they really understood that that's the pattern, then it makes it a lot easier, because it just sounds as if it should be circles. So open string practice is really helpful for that bit. And if you've got those kids that like the sort of challenge of, you know, rubbing your head and tapping your stomach and vice versa, like doing the finger pattern but on the shoulder can be really useful. Let's try. Oh.
So my brain starts to cry.
That's a really good idea.
Thank you, it's not mine.
Still a
I
really
think
good
it was
idea.
Mark Knight who used to make me do really difficult bits. I remember doing Mendelssohn Violin Concerto. I remember which bit it is, but with all of the fingers here. Or maybe it was my Bryanston teacher. Anyway, so let's just play it from there. Great, and then you can just join in. Good, and then try adding, so we'll go the same box. Go a bit slower. So this is 1, 2, ready, play. Well done. So it's really hard. If you've never done it before, it's for practice, not for here really, because it's really, it's one of those, it's a very helpful practice tool, I think, for book 4 and up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to hear the open.
Yeah.
I do a lot of
And
open It only works if you know exactly where you're going in your head.
Exactly, and it's therefore really good for
Yeah.
memory as well. Yeah.
Oof.
I don't get them to do that, what I was just doing. That's
Yeah.
just my own little nerdy thing. And then you've got a memory trap in 122. Lots of them will want to play. And it's the decorated version.
Yeah, sorry, was that? 1, 2, 2.
Yeah.
So what do you call this bit?
Memory trap decorated version, or play EC in their position. I mean, it just depends what they latch onto for memory. And then another memory trap in 130. But the memory trap's actually on that F natural, isn't it? Stay down. In first position. Because each other time, watch my left hand, we've done. So if you remember to stay down, then you'll probably remember why. And then you've got what I like to think of as the upside down bowing. Which again, if I was playing this in a concert all by myself, I would definitely do 2 ups at the beginning and the end so that they're the right way around, but we're not, so we do what's in the book. So in terms of those 3, they're not really memory traps as such, but memory challenges. First one's long. Second one goes round and round. We talked about that in the memory session, didn't we? Those three
Yeah.
bits, yeah. Good. Any questions about this piece? This is the first full concerto they play. Where is the slow movement?
In book 5,
Yeah.
it's the movement I played. And if I'd thought about it, I would have done the whole concerto.
The whole symphony.
The whole concerto, sorry.
Okay.
It was only on the way home I thought,
Yeah.
just played that.
Yeah, so the slow movement's the second piece in book 5, and I think it's really nice for them when they realise, like, oh my god, I can play a whole concerto. And quite often in groups we'll play it, just start to finish, and it's really fun for those people that can play all of it, but it's very motivating for the kids who haven't learned the slow movement yet, especially if they've learnt this movement, which is really hard. And it's like, you're so close to the end of book 4, and book 5 is such a doddle. Like, those first two pieces are so easy compared with what they've done in book 4. You know, it really gets them through Bach double to get to that, I want to play the whole of the concerto feeling. I mean, most
So
of Bach
that's
double
the way-
gets through because they really love it and they want to do it, but even
Yeah.
a bit
So
more.
they don't have to labour through that third.
The G minor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get to that, they
No.
can already do
Oh,
it.
goodness. Right, we're going to talk about perpetual motion, but as I said before, as I've said many times, I teach it before Vivaldi 3. Okay. I think the main things about this piece for you to take away is, if you look at the WhatsApp group, you can see right at the bottom of my page my kind of top tip for how to learn this is in 4 stages. 1, you learn it in singles on the string, and you would start either at the 2nd line or the 3rd line. I personally start on the 3rd line. And then we learn the first 2 lines when they can play the whole piece. And then, so I've just put a line through staccato, quasi-spiccato, because that is the most nonsensical piece of jargon I've ever read in my life. I've spoken to so many professional musicians about this. Quasi-spiccato, I mean, what is quasi-spiccato? And spiccato are so different. So,
Because otherwise, if you play it more staccato, it's a lot of energy by the end of it. You're going to be knackered.
also you'd have to play it so slowly to play it staccato. I mean, I just don't even know what they mean. Anyway, so the ways that I learn it as singles, just name that bow stroke. Détaché. Or
Strokey.
yeah, just like
Sticky.
normal, just like normal bows. Very good.
Squeaky.
In singles on the string, and then if you want to use this piece, which I think is a very good idea, to learn spiccato, my kids have generally done bits and pieces of like games and stuff to do spiccato because they like it. They will have started to think about up bow spiccato during book 4, like using long Largo variation, Beethoven minuet, and Becker gavotte. But up bow spiccato is a very different thing. It doesn't really mean that you can do normal spiccato. So for most of my kids, this is the first time we're going to learn that kind of spiccato. And so I keep them in singles, and they get a credit for playing it spiccato, but singles. And the reason for that is because if you do it in singles, you can play it fast, which gets the left hand ready for sautier, but if you do it in doubles as it's written, in order to be doing spiccato, you've got to slow it down so much. Because let's just be really clear, staccato is stopped bows on the string, spiccato is bounced bow and stick, and sautier is when the hair is bouncing, but the stick is bouncing, but there is no time for the hair to leave the string. So you're going from this, staccato, to spiccato where it's bouncing. So where it's bouncing so much, you can still see my stickers like going up and down, but the hair is not leaving the string because there's just no time. That's sautier.
Okay.
So in this piece, what they're aiming for eventually is sautier, Like, that's not staccato. My hair is not leaving the string. But if you wanted to play that spiccato, you couldn't really go any faster than that, which is super slow. It takes ages and it gets very boring.
So that would be number 4 then, if in the 4.
Yeah, so the ways that my kids learn it: singles on the string, singles using spiccato, doubles on the string using détaché for a credit, and then doubles using sautier
And détaché
Normally.
is normal bows.
Yeah. in review. So usually they get a credit for playing it like this. You know, like Perpetual Motion Book 1 doubles. Not so in the string, but pretty much the same arm movement. And then once they've been playing it for like 6 months or something, they'll get
Just in terms of teaching the 2 techniques, the new techniques, the spiccato and the sautier, how do you teach spiccato?
I think that we are going to talk about that another time, so we can do the teaching points for this, and then we'll talk about those bow strokes next week, maybe.
Okay.
I go back to perpetual motion and etude and put this
Yeah.
into that.
Let me
Better
just
than
make a note on my phone.
Conway's having a sad day.
Okay, good. So there are memory issues with the 2 ascending lines, so the second line of the music and then the first line of the second page. They have to kind of realise that they've got a little dip back down and then back up in bar 6. And more of these. And then when they come to bar 28, less of those, fewer of those. And then the scale goes straight up. I do a lot of tiny bits of half position in this. So you've got obviously that half position bit we were just talking about. I do put in the yellow bracket to show that that's a bit of half position. 28, 38, and 30. That's not that much actually. I have printed this out, written it out on New Score, and I can give it to you as singles. So my students learn from a sheet that's just got crotchets on it, quavers on it, not the semiquavers. I don't know why they printed the whole piece. Like, it would be much more normal to start it with semiquavers and then just put simile and the doubles lines. I don't know why they printed the whole 2 pages of semiquavers. No.
Just to make the students panic about how they need to see them play.
They just like the book 4 editors just love semiquavers.
Some books will walk This fingering is hard. So that's definitely a box. And what's tricky about the E harmonic is coming off of it, not finding it for most of them. It's coming back a whole tone to the D. Does that make sense? Bar 12. So they can do this quite easily. It's that I can't do beautifully today either. That's what they need to have help with and then repeat lots at home. In bar 22, you want the 1 and the 3 to stay on all the way. Well, the 1 comes off after the F naturals in 23, a whole beat before it finishes, and the 3 comes off half a beat before that bar finishes. Sorry, say it again.
So the 1 and the 3 from 22, stay down, add the 4,
they're both down until you play the B, and then they come off there. This is also a box because it's difficult for them to get that extended for and pulled back one. And then we have an overlapping box there, so the box I just played finishes on the first 4 notes as the next one, which starts. I would normally still be in singles at this point, but the key point is that they've got to know when to put the 4 down. So we're talking about bar 27. They've got to play 1 A D 4 3. And if they get the 4 happening in the right place, then generally that's okay, and what they play is a B natural. And so then it also, the work of making that B flat, really flat enough, is the other issue there. And then of course, when you go from singles into doubles, that changes the string crossing here. Those circles are all going that way, but as soon as it's it's like a Z shape, not just circles, so just be aware of that. There's a memory trap in 42. You'll see on my music that I've put the semitones in and the 3rd and 4th position colours in because it's confusing to read as well as to play this bit, and they're not super used to 4th position. Star Wars.
No, Mars.
Oh, Mars. The chords should be alright for them because they've done all of those chords in size 3. It depends how their chords were in size 3 and how much they've resisted practicing it since then. And they're 2 and 2 chords. But in like a quick, but not that. And I put a forte piano in 52 because I really like that drama. Not just piano. Personal choice. The last.
Because it's difficult to kind of pull that back.
Yes.
Yeah. As I remember.
The last 2 bows are really tricky for them. We spend a lot of time. I do it in group a lot because it's kind of more fun for them. To try and lots of mine want to do to really get that like stick into the string. So we've worked in pairs where one student will put their hand here so that they can't take it off, and they have to practice it like that. But obviously it's the right note because it's someone else's hand. And you know, like that kind of witches dance review stuff can help. But I think for most of them, because it's fortissimo and 2 strings at once, they kind of, I think it's more in their head than in their bodies, but they do need it really spelled out to them. Ta-da. That it's, yeah, exactly, ta-da,
Yeah.
not da-da. Yeah, exactly. All right, we've got 5 minutes. Can we tackle the first 2 lines?
Or should we play it?
Or should we play it and do the first 2 lines next week? Okay. Let's do the backing track.
That first note chord is scary for concerts. For some reason. Just comes out of nowhere.
You what?
The beginning comes out of nowhere, really.
Okay, so we're
Because
talking about...
you lead it, but they play. And I never quite managed to get that right.
Yeah. If you do this with the backing track, do use speed shifter because it's crazy fast on the old ones anyway. I don't know about the new one that I now can't download. So annoying. Right, so let's just get this sorted out. Yeah, see that's 2 2 clicks down, and that's still pretty fast. To the balance point where there's the elasticity in the stick. Good, so we'll finish off those 2 first lines and how to teach the timing, which takes ages and is pretty much impossible on Zoom, I must say. Thank you for a lovely day. Let's just have a bow. Thank you both. And there's a really nice second violin part to that. Yeah, it's really nice.